Hello there, and welcome to episode 7 of the RedShark Interview Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the people, the stories, and the tech shaping the creative industries. I'm your host, Chris Wells, and today I'm talking to Ondřej Nekvasil, production designer for many films and TV shows, with his most recent work being the core focus of our chat today, Amazon's fantasy epic, The Wheel of Time, which was just cancelled about 2 weeks ago from when I was recording this. So if you do get a kind of sense of wistful sadness, that's why. It doesn't change how great the show is though, and honestly, the visual world that Ondřej created deserves all the praise it can get. Even if you haven't seen the show, this is a valuable insight into one of the most important roles on a narrative film and TV show that I don't think gets anywhere near as much attention as it really deserves. We explore how the heck you even begin to craft a believable fantasy world, which also deliberately avoids those tired medieval tropes that you usually see. We look into the art of creating spaces that feel lived in, rather than just being visually impressive, and the stories behind that. I also get to ask him about his work on Bong Joon-ho's sci-fi masterpiece film, Snowpiercer, which I absolutely love and recommend if you haven't seen it, and he gives me some great insights on that project too. This one was recorded just a couple of weeks ago, and so, without further ado, let's get to it.
My name is Ondřej Nekvasil. I'm working as a production designer. And the production designer is the professional who takes care about everything what is like in front of the camera, what you can see on the screen. So, except the actors and the costume and the makeup on the actors, So like if you imagine any scene you like from any movie you saw before, and you will kind of erase the actors, but you will have some space, some location, some interior, exterior. And that's my responsibility to find the place, dress the place, prepare it for the shoot, and kind of discuss it, of course, discuss it with the director and director of photography. And of course, I'm not doing that myself. It's really like a big team, and I'm kind of like a head of that team. I like to somehow using the thing like it's kind of like you have a conductor and you have an orchestra, so you need a big team to make that things happen, because you need the skills, craftsmanship, carpenters, cabinet makers, painters, molders, sculptures, and all together you can make the world in front of a camera. So that's kind of my profession, and I'm doing that for years. And recently I was working on the show called The Wheel of Time, and I was on that show really from the start, really like from the February 2019, when we had like a really just few empty offices and a few empty old factory halls, and we kind of turned it into the Jordan Studios with the workshop, with the stages, with all of that, and we filled it up with a lot of sets for 3 seasons of The Wheel of Time. So it's all together. We shot 24 episodes, which is like a whole day. We can watch it whole day. That what we did within these 3 seasons, yes. But because of the COVID, it took so long, because normally it will be like 3 or 4 years, but with the COVID and with all these like restrictions because of the COVID, it was very hard to shoot and to work in that. Yeah.
Did you find it gave you more time to kind of build that world, maybe a bit more time than you would have normally had based on the production schedule?
Yeah, it was like Wheel of Time is really like a large show. It's not like the largest, much bigger shows, of course, on TV. But, we had a chance to build it all together from the scratch. And as I said, because instead of being in a film studios, because every film studios, we were based in Prague, and every film studios in Prague was occupied by other shows. So we had to go to the old factory, and actually we have to build it from from empty spaces. And that was the facility. And after that, we have to find the look of the show, and that was the crucial thing for us, because what is important on a show like that you have to find the style and the way how you want to show the world, how you want to express your ideas about that world and all of that. it's kind of, you have to find the vocabulary, and you have to find the way, like a visual vocabulary, how you want to express what is written on the page. It's because my work is always starting with the script, and it's always about the scripts. And because we had like a books and the scripts, and we had like a really huge amount of material to work with from the beginning, it was like a little bit longer prep than we usually have. For the first season, yeah.
Did you read as many of the books? Because there's 14 books. There's so many books.
Yeah, it's 13 books. I didn't read all of them. I read actually exactly what we showed. Like I read it like after even more, like a book 6. I should say, like I read the first half of it, and the reason for that, it's kind of technical, because I was hoping that there'll be another continuity of that show, and for me it's much better to read the script first and read the book after that, because if I'm reading the book, I'm already like making some ideas in my head about the look, and after that I'm disappointed if it's not in the script. So
yeah, of course,
I prefer to read the script first and after that reading the book. But even with that, I do have an issue sometimes, that I was like talking on some meeting in the first season, and I was like, I said, what about this scene? And they look at me and say, like, this scene is not in the script. And I realized, okay, I remember that from the book. So I kind of mishmash that thing, meaning, okay, this has to be in the story, but it wasn't, because it didn't make it,
Like, I can imagine going into reading a book like that with your production designer head on.
Yes.
Like, I imagine you look at it very differently than like someone who's just like, oh, the stories, the characters. And I imagine they still jump out. Was there anything with your production designer hat on as you read the book that really jumped out, that got you really excited to work on the show?
First of all, I had a call with Rafe Judkins. That was like a first contact with the whole series. And we discussed his vision of the look and the cast and all of that. And what was really important, that Rafe, from the beginning, he knew it will be completely mixed cast, because we are saying that actually that world was like that wheel was turning, and these people were mixing for years, and they travel across that world a few times. So it was really like now that in the 20th century, people are traveling around the world, and people are living in the different continents. And suddenly you don't have that kind of like a classical feeling that, okay, somebody is European, somebody is American, somebody is Chinese, somebody is Japanese, and they never met before. And, and they are looking for the white American, like in 19th century in Japan, for example. So I think that's really important from the beginning, that I was already have that in my mind, that actually the cultures of that world already mixed up, because that's the whole concept. And every culture, every people brought a little bit from their culture to this common pot of the look, and that somehow it's always visible on screen. So when I read it, I already had that kind of in mind that, okay, it's a village in the, alpine village somewhere in the mountains, but I know that the villages are not only like Caucasians, or they are not only that one type of the Austrians, or the Swiss or whatever, but they are already mixed in that village, and nobody actually thinking about it. And this is not the point of that story, and nobody actually even mentioned that any time. It's really just about who is good, who is bad, who is a really enemy, who is not enemy, who is trying to work for himself, who is trying to work for the other people. And that's what I love about that actually, because you are focusing on the characters, and you are not focusing on something around the characters, because this is not important. This is not important for the overall story. And that's the thing which is really, I had it in my mind, because I was not reading that, okay, it's an alpine village, and it's okay, it looks like a villages in Austria, or villages in somewhere in Japan, but it's it has some kind of strange look And I hope that we made it. Of course, like if audience kind of read it, but the mixture of the shapes of the building, like the details on the building, the patterns on the inside the rooms, like the way how they carve the wood and all of that was very specific about that. And the same thing was the White Tower and Tarvalon. When we start thinking about that, we already had like how we are building that thing that is not made by one culture or one thing, but it's like a really essence of all cultures together. And these cultures, that each culture had a significant more or less impact on that look, but it's not just like a one guy or, one culture did it. And it's very specifically that, because it's a multicultural thing. And it is word which is really created by the different cultures, not only in the visual part, but also in that philosophy, in the ethics, and in all of that, and it's really visible there.
And I think that diversity really helps kind of it not fall into, because I can imagine as a production designer and anyone working on a show, you don't want it to fall into the tropes of fantasy. You don't want it to just look like Lord of the Rings. You don't want it to look like just medieval Europe again.
Yes.
And I think like the show does really well to kind of, it doesn't look like anything else. It looks like, it doesn't look like any other fantasy. Was that something that you had in the back of your mind, basically, like, let's make sure like this looks too much like Game of Thrones, let's try something different? Or were you just kind of very confident with the kinds of inspirations you were taking to create this unique world?
Well, I was really aware, all my team was aware about that. And I'm kind of visual type. So I'm always working with a lot of reference pictures, So what we did, like at the first step, that we did like a big boards, which we had in our department in the, the place where everybody was walking, even like going to the kitchen. You have to pass these boards. And we had like this is the culture, this is another culture. And that was the one step ahead. The second one was like that we said, we don't want to have that word like a medieval in the way that everything is kind of like Gothic and that, like really dark. Because if you are reading the book, for example, that village, in the beginning, everybody likes that village. Everybody loves to be there. So, like the idea was like, okay, let's do it in the way that it's still like a specific look. It's still the word, let's say, similar to the 16th century in Europe or something like that. But people like to be there. So it's not like that they are living in the, pile of shit and, like there's a lot of like meditating and everything is kind of like just depressive. It's not, like they don't have too much money. They don't have like a comfort, like a big comfort, but they do like the villages. They love the work and living in the village. And so that was the one thing which was really tricky for us to find a way how to make it like different looking and, but also very grounded in the way how the people, so somehow that you can believe, okay, this is the favorite inn in the village and everybody would like to come there. So it couldn't be like a dirty place. It has to be something. And there are sometimes drunk. There are something they have an argument, but it's not the, like the dirty, bar that everybody is coming and, fighting there. Because the story is not about that. Story is about that Wine Spring Inn in the Two Rivers village, which is like the starting point of the whole story, where the whole story will start. It's really something friendly and something that you would like to go. It's like it's the inn that you would like to go. You would like to have a chat. Somebody would like to be drunk there. Somebody would like to argue there. But it's not the place that you are going there to fight. This is not, you can go there also just to have a fun and just to, play some games and stuff like that. Which means for us that we really try to do very livable place. And even like our prop guys and the set guy, they invent some games and, stuff that what we can say, okay, these guys are enjoying the time here. They are not here just like to go and be drunk and fall asleep. So that's the thing, like to ground it. And what was also very specific for us that, as I said about this mixture of the culture, we were not, even like if we were shooting in some spaces which are like a 16th century European architecture, we always like add some details which move that into the Japan or into Korea, into the China, into like a different cultures at the same time. And we were kind of like making that mixture of the culture. So that was one of the steps which we were trying to do. As I said, like what was the important moment for us was to create that feeling of, okay, people can live there. People are really they love to be there. And if they are forced to go out from the village, it's really like they lost something,
Yeah. And how do you contrast that with something like the White Tower? What's kind of your thought process going into there? Because it seems just like where people don't want to be like leadership are there.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily got that same like maybe warmth as like you said, like the inn at the start where everyone's very happy. There's a lot of politics, a lot of. What was your process in designing and thinking about a place like that?
Yeah, so it was for me always about the, looking for the kind of background and the history and knowing that Assadis are there for like 100 years. And it's really something very specific about that they built the rules and everything about that for hundreds of years. Because our first designs, and we really spent weeks or even months looking for that. And what we did, where we started was okay, let's imagine that they design it and they build it quite fast, and there was one designer or architect who was leading that. But we realized it doesn't work for us. So what we did that actually we imagined, okay, they build this part, they built that part, they built another part, and we started adding another places. And we said, okay, in that era, the Tarvalon and the White Tower, there's this type of stone, we said, there's a kind of whitish grayish limestone. So they are using that limestone because they are building something like a church forever. So they are not using anything softer than stone for the buildings. And in each era, they have some kind of a different type of decoration and carving and edging and, all how they deal with the stone. But they are still in the same place, so they are using the same stone forever. That if you are in these places, in Croatia, in Dubrovnik, or even if you are in Paris and you see, okay, that's the stone which was used to build Paris, and there was the one day was used to build Notre Dame, and it was used to build some stuff in 18th century, Louvre, and it's a similar stone which was used in the 19th century. So that was the kind of thing that, okay, we will add the pieces together. Each piece has something different in it. And we said, okay, that tower and all the facilities, they were not built as per one plan within 100 years, but there was a few hundred years, and they changed the plan, they add the detail, they add the garden, they add the training facility, they add the classrooms. And that kind of, I should say, additive design, I hope it's visible on that actually it's still the same stone, still the same kind of concept, but different places. Some of them are older, some of them are newer, some of them have a very a long history, and it's really something what it's of course. I hope it's visible on screen, at the end.
Yeah, it's almost like you're telling the story with the location, isn't it? Is that what informs all of your production design across your whole career? That kind of thinking about why this came to be and what materials would they use in that scenario? Is that almost like the kind of process that you use to design something like that?
Yeah, it's always that, because for me it's always too good to make some kind of borders to your vision. And after that, once you have the border set, you can cross the borders if you feel like it's better to cross the border. But in somehow okay, let's say that we are using this type of materials, this type of structure, because that's the most natural structure there. And we are using these type of colors because for some reasons, these colors are the most easiest to get in that area, So that's kind of the base for that. And after that, we are thinking, okay, they are using silk, or they are using the cotton, or they are using wool. And all of that is kind of very important to think about that, what is the background of it. And I feel because we were thinking about the whole word in this way, that is still a real, and we were using a lot that word grounded, that. So we are not saying that because it's a magic word, everything is possible. It is magic, it's a magic word, but we have some limits, and we have to work with that these limits, because otherwise it will be everything will look the same. And as I said, there was no intention to make like some places darker. And I'm not saying it's easy, but in some way it's really like it's easier to make the space which is dark, really like dirty and all of that, because that's something which is doable, I should say. And you can really like add a lot of painters and a lot of edging and a lot of like dirty details there. But it's much harder to make the space which look like it's 400 years old or 500 years old, and all the furniture is really like old, like 200 years, but it has that kind of aging and patina, but it's not destroyed, it's not dirty. The difference, that you are going into the empty house which is dirty, and there's a leaking roof and everything is kind of there's no windows. Or if you are going into the old castle and you are open the room into the library, and that library was here in the 16th century, so all that furniture and everything is here from the 16th century. And suddenly you can feel that, and this is much harder to do on screen, because it needs more time and more a work on the details to get that kind of aging, rather than just a dirty patina on it. That's something which, of course, and there's also another thing which I like, and it's always that you are not designing the space only to be space, but also has some purpose. So when we designed the village, for example, that each building was dedicated to some craftsmanship. Okay, this guy is dealing with the wool, this guy is the baker, this guy is dealing with the meat, this guy, so it's this is the blacksmith, this is the carpenter, they are making these. We always try to dress the space accordingly to the life. So it's not just put some stuff around the building. No, that was really, this guy is dealing with the sheepskin. And we can see that there are these sheepskins on the frames, and he's dealing that. And it's, it's a part of the storytelling that each thing has some kind of purpose. Yeah. And that's what we were trying to do. It takes a little bit more time than just to make it, nicely looking or cool looking. It requires more time. But I hope that the audience kind of enjoy it, and I hope that they can see it. I'm getting quite positive reviews from various people who are really, looking to the show really either first time looking for the show, never read the books, or both. And of course, there are people who are completely hating. That's normal. That's usual stuff, that people are reading the books and the series is going a different way, so they are kind of upset because it doesn't look like what they saw when they read the book. But there's a lot of people who really enjoy that, and I really always like the moment then somebody tell me, what, I really like the way how you deal with the furniture there, because it really helped me to be in that world and the space. And it's kind of okay, some people are noticing that, that.
It does definitely work, because I always find it fascinating when, especially watching fantasy where you're creating a whole world, there's always a subconscious thing where you can tell that the sets were crafted with that purpose in mind. And then sometimes you'll watch something and you could tell they've just thrown a load of things together. Yeah. This looks like, a sketch show where they've got fantasy, sheepskins here, some lights here. And it does really feel like there's a lot of, I think this is probably just a video game term, but it's environmental storytelling, where there is a story being told with the location kind of separate to the main story. I think that's often a wall for people to come into something like fantasy, where it is an entirely new world. And if it doesn't feel like it's been cared for, and it doesn't feel like it's been lived in, I do feel like there's a little switch in the back of your mind. Most audiences aren't even aware that it's there, but it does disconnect you. Yeah. You watch a fantasy thing where it's they're in the woods, and then it's just the woods, and it's just clearly just the trees, as opposed to a lot of the locations, because there are so many locations in the show, and they do feel very different, but also kind of a cohesive, they feel like part of a single world. It doesn't feel now they're in Morocco, now they're in Slovenia. During that process, and obviously your leadership of that, how does that work with the VFX people doing the set extensions? Are they based on your designs as well? And how much does people like the showrunner and other people have as part of that conversation? Is it you basically lead it and they give a thumbs up, thumbs down? Is it more of a collaborative on that level, especially with the writer side? Because I can imagine with your team specifically, it's very collaborative and there's a lot of moving parts, but what's the process for the other creative teams? Like, for example, is there, one of the things I thought was, obviously it's fantasy, is there like a remit for how many windows and fire sticks there are, so there's enough light to justify being able to light things in an interesting way? Or is it just that's kind of part of your process anyway? Or is there a time where the cinematographer goes, there's not enough light, could we possibly have a window?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Does that kind of happen? Is that kind of what is that process like?
So for me, there's always like a really the whole process of working in a team, and that's something what I'm telling to my students. Like, if you don't like to work in a team, you have to find a different profession than the film design, because the production design is really about like a communication. So you have to communicate with your team, you have to communicate with the workers and different. But you have to always communicate with the other people within the department. And because of the schedule, usually you don't have like months to get closer to that person. You have to be really like discussing everything from the first minute when you meet. Like, so it's really important to keep that discussion honest and straight from the beginning. So for this show, for the show like that, I should say like at the visual effects they have like at two levels. Like one was the level which was all that magic trick, all that waves and all of that kind of the magic part of it, which was really completely in the hands of the visual effects. And in that side, and I think it's really important, they talk about that with the actors. They talk, of course, with the camera, like a DPs and, of course, showrunner and director, but also with the actors, because they try to make it mostly for the third season that actually the movement is really coming from from that person. So they really want to make that movement similar to the movement of the body, because all the actors, they had training and they had like a choreographer who was like really dealing with that type of movement, because they said like every single one has a different type of colors and movement. And so all of that part was completely in the hands of visual effects, and their partners were more like DPs and the actors for that, like really like creating that look. But after that, we have that kind of what we should say like the physical places, which are really how that space look like, how the city looks like, where the village is placed and all of that. And I always like to think about the visual effects in the way how they can help us to be natural and to be really like inside the village. So, for example, the two rivers was like built in the outside of Prague in the quarry, because it's a technical area. You can build that. It's not the nature, and you can keep the set there for years, which is like that's what we were looking for. But also because it was old quarry, which was not used for like 15, 20 years. We already have a forest there. We already have like some trees and the background. But of course, everything works until like a height of 20 meters or 25 meters. But above that, you can see there are no mountains. So we really discuss like with the visual effects, what could be the look of that, what kind of mountains are there, how it's connected with the mountains which you will see. And that was like a really important for us, that they said, okay, can you build something else here? Because, this angle is very tricky for us to deal with that. And so actually everything what you can see in a camera, in two rivers, for example, it's physical, but everything what you can see above the sets, let's say a few meters above the sets, it's a really set extension with the visual effects. But because we combine the nature of that quarry together with we had a much bigger stuff that if we are only stuck in the classical backlot, which is on the parking lot next to the studios, and we have a green screen everywhere. So because we have still like another few meters of the nature before we saw that the nature is just too small and it's not like giving us that scale. So all of these concepts, and that's why I like to work with the concept artists, are really prepared in advance and discuss in advance and discuss with the director, and they have opinions, showrunner's opinion, and everybody's coming with some kind of ideas how this could work together. It's also important from the point of view that sometimes I am the first one on the location and I'm doing the scout and nobody else is actually there. So I have to kind of offer the idea, okay, let's use this one But what about if we will, like, instead of seeing these mountains, we will see this, or, like at that, in the first season we were shooting in Croatia, and at some point we saw the sea, and we don't want to see the sea, we want to see the landscape. So, it's a really great shot. So I have to discuss with the visual effects, is it doable for you to go to the location, and so you will replace that sea in the background and get a desertish landscape behind the actors. And I should say that it was again a very tricky process, and but at the end we found a really common language with Andrews, who was a visual effects supervisor, and we were able to communicate very closely, and he always get all my ideas first, and he came back to me and said something what does work, what doesn't work for him, because sometimes I'm thinking about something which could work for them and it's not working because their budget as well. But I should say that I believe that after all these years I do know the general principle of the work, of thinking about the visual effects, and I'm trying to avoid the tricky or expensive things to do. And I'm always trying to find the location and shoot as much as possible in the location that we can actually just add the details to the scale. And they are coming back to me and saying, okay, this is what we can do, this is what we couldn't do, right? Because of the, their budget and, what they need to do. Yeah. But of course, in the specific stuff, like, for example, the White Tower, which was there exposed a lot, we had we share all these concepts back and forth. And we said, okay, that's the look. That's what we are looking for. That's how the tower is built, because they built the 3D model of the city and the White Tower and all of that. And we kind of continue with the sets and all of that. But for me, it's always that kind of communication with a back and forth. And it's really, I'm coming with some idea. They are coming with some ideas. We are kind of putting them together. And if we are happy with that, it's going to happen. So. It's always that kind of communication, because it's not about the fact that somebody said this and it has to be either cancelled or approved. It's really that somebody says, I like this part, but I'm not sure about this one. Can, we talk about that? And I think that kind of creativity and that kind of creative process is really something what I'm looking for, and something what I really like about this job, that you are meeting really talented and educated people in various subjects, like lighting and all of the stuff with the visual effects, and with all the editing and all of that, and you can talk about the subject with them. I think it's really important for me to find that. Yeah. But in general, I do like the physical sets, and I feel like they are very important for the actors, that they are in the physical sets. And so that's, for example, what we try to do, that even the sets were not at the biggest. We always gave them the chance that you can go to some place, turn around, and you are in the Tarvalon city. So you are not standing in front of the house and there's a green screen on both sides, and it's completely different feeling. And when I spoke with the actors, they really feel that, and they really feel that it's actually important for them as well, because they feel that they are really now in that place. That's the goal, that we can create a kind of closed environment. We can create the detail, and the VFX can help us to get the scale of that set and all of that.
And I suppose, just going back a tiny bit on what you were saying there, do you have any advice or any do's or don'ts for the kinds of communication that works best for a production design, to someone talking to a production designer? Is there any kinds of ways of communicating that frustrates you? You're like, man, I wish they talk like this. Or is there any ways that you think, wow, this is the best way of collaborating with someone I've had?
So, as I said, because I'm quite a visual person, and I'm really looking for the details and a texture, patterns, and colors and lines and all of that. I feel the best way to communicate is to start with some pictures. Some bringing the pictures, starting with the mood board or with the references, and say I imagine that this could be something let's say, this town or that town, or this sculpture or whatever you are looking for. And once you have that, it's kind of starting point to talk. Because if you are just starting with the words, you are losing time, because that's something what everybody can have a different imagination. And of course, what is the best, and that's what, I do like, and that's something what I'm known for, is like that I have these kind of big boards full of pictures, and and we can talk about that. It's like, okay, this is a nice reference. I do like the light here. I do like the color here, and I kind of going through the pictures. It's a starting point, and everybody in the room, if it's somebody who is sensitive enough and open to collaborate, immediately understand that I know what I'm talking about. Or also he can say, okay, no, it's completely wrong because this is kind of going a different way. And that was the process. We took some time before it was established. But what I should say that the third season had it like a kind of complete, and it was like a kind of locked, the way we communicate, the way we were able to understand each other. And it wasn't before because everybody was working on different projects before, and it's kind of like it took some time before the team was set, and there was a lot of people who were just passing by or were just like doing few episodes and they left. And somehow the fact that we have like a core team which was really focused on the third season from the beginning to the end, and they finish it, and there was like we had a little distraction with the writer's strike and with the actor's strike, but it was not like killing us because we had a script, so we can continue shooting. And I feel that was the thing why that third season is better than the previous one. That we kind of like, I should say like it's kind of that you have like a machinery which is like going well, and suddenly that it's going very smooth because all the wheels and everything is kind of like a connect to each other, and you are not losing energy because of doing something only comfort somebody's ego, but you are really like going to get the job done. And so I think that was really important, and that's what I like about that, because it shows that we are able to improve. And you have some shows which were declining, and on that decline they were shut down. I think that we were improving, and they shut it down in the way up, which is like their choice. Of course, they own everything, and like at the studio and the network. So we were just hired guns on some point of view, but on the other hand, I believe that we were really like improving the quality of it. And if you are looking for the ratings and for the comments, I guess it's clear that actually the third season went up. People really enjoy that, and people really feel that this is working, So, so that was really good, and that's what I feel like was quite positive about all that experience, that we kind of improved ourselves into that.
No, I understand that. Yeah, it is such a shame about the cancellation. One of my colleagues, him and his family are massive fans. Yeah. And they said it's like Firefly all over again. They fall in love with something that gets cancelled. Yeah. And it hurts so bad. So I am sorry about that. One of the kinds of things, the first word that came to my mind when looking at a lot of the productions and the detail in Wheel of Time overall was intricacy. Yes. Like a lot of the magic, there's lots of lines, there's loads of individual tiny parts. And I've noticed a lot of the sets and a lot of the kind of background. There's all these beautiful, intricate patterns, or like the things over the windows. And I was just wondering what kind of the process was to get to that point. And also, was that something that was conscious, that like in every location there was going to be some form of these kind like of just very detail orientated designs?
So there was like for us, there was the way how to tell the story that this space is not there for like a few years. Also, it's kind of based on that idea of the various cultures, that they kind of improve the quality of these patterns. They were adding the details. So like they had a pillar and they start carving the pillar, and after sometimes they carved another pillar. Like that kind of like that moment before Industrial Revolution, when everything is kind of produced as an object to buy, or that people were really like spending time to improve the details there. So that was something which was really inspired by the culture of the, as I said, like a 17th, 18th century, that the people are really like adding the details there because they kind of try to improve the quality of that space, and also kind of sign themselves, like there. For example, in some churches, depends on the culture, like either Christian or Jewish or Muslim churches. Like you really feel like that if they have some important piece of fabric, they are really adding that fabric into the new fabric, and they are adding another details there because like they are not throwing out the fabric because it's part of history. So like if the fabric is too fragile on the edges, they cut it, but they are implying the the history into the new one. So that was kind of like our goal to really say, okay, we are in that world that they are really adding the details and these carvings and these are really helping us to get that feeling. Okay, it's really kind of old place, and it was not designed overnight. And it took some time before like all the other art directors and all the team and set designers were able to get into it, because of course like a contemporary architects and designers feel that everything has to be kind of simplified and kind of nice simple shape. And suddenly I was asking for a lot of patterns and details and carvings and all of that. And with the furniture, we were really working with very talented guys in India. They help us like that. We designed carving, for example, for the like a chair or for the bed. And we sent it over, and they did like a really amazing like a hand carving into that. So we kind of mixed that as well like there. Or it was the same thing with the flags and the banners, that instead of just printed them, we had a printed one as well. But if we were inside, we had these kind of like these heavy banners which are like handmade embroidery and all of that. And so we kind of combined these things together, that again, like having that detail and the pattern and all of that there. And you're exactly right. You said that about the waving, because that was the same thing which Andrew was working with his team, like to make that waving not just to some kind of one light wave, but there was really like a lot of lines together. And every line has a slightly different shapes and slightly different color and slightly different pattern. And that was really important for the look of the wavings, So all of that was really kind of important for us, and we worked pretty hard to do it. And because our team was actually established during the first season with so many changes, we were able to kind of continue working on it on the third season as well, and to follow that idea.
Yeah, you can tell. And once again, this comes back to, it feels like a coherent world. It feels complete. And I think that's why people respond, including me, respond so strongly to it. I'm terrible when it comes to watching fantasy stuff. I always get thrown out, but it is very, the plot's great, the acting and everything's great, but that world feels very unique. And I think it is a triumph the way that you've created that world. What tools or softwares do you use in your process of production design on something like this?
At the beginning, like everybody, I'm starting with as one of my colleagues is joking, it's that's like the Pentel 05, Pentel 07, Pentel 01. So I'm starting with the pencils and sketches, and after that we are working with the SketchUp a lot with the SketchUp. So this helps us to create the space and work with that. And after that, it's AutoCAD is the best for us, mostly because there's a lot of manufacturing process which is now simplified by using the CNC cutting machines, lasers, and all of that, and we are using that heavily. So, for example, you have that these CNC cutters on the wood, and we find a way that if you are able to make these lines properly, and you are discussing with the programmer, that they are able to do the CNC cut, which is not just a straight line to the wood, but it has a kind of feeling of the almost like a handmade carving, and that's what we have to learn it. The guys in the workshop have to learn it, but so it's kind of I call it like a high tech, low tech combination. So because they make some, let's say, tabletop or something, which has to be a lot of carvings on it, and the base was built on the CNC cutter with the computer, and after that the guys came and they finished it by hand, and altogether it looks like a kind of very strange looking old-fashioned hand carving table. So most of the team, it's really AutoCAD and SketchUp. These are kind of key things. And after that, of course, Photoshop, and our graphic team is working with the Photoshops. So they are like producing not only the graphic things as the books and all of that, but also the stencils and all the stuff. But if it's necessary, we are coming back to the handmade stuff. So if, for example, if you have a book, we see one of the characters writing the book, we actually had a guy who was able to write the book, like a handwriting on the paper. So we had that detail well done. So we are trying to do that that stuff properly, So yes, it's, for me, I called it like a high-tech, low-tech combination, and it's really so we are able to use all the digital techniques, but the key softwares are SketchUp, AutoCAD, and Photoshop, and of course after that, in designs and others to help us to do it. But and this way we are able to print the stuff, we are able to print on the fabric, and we are able to give these data for the for the embroidery company, and they are able to kind of make like that embroidery things on the details. But at the end, there is a man who is able to put it all together, and there is a man who is able, or woman who is able to make it aged and down. So it's finishing with with the hands. So it's starting with the hands, with that sketch, with that simple drawing, and finishing with the hand. But the process is really using a lot of digital technologies, and we did a very good experience working with the 5D CNC card. So if you have a styrofoam and you have a really good model, you can really make some shapes and model on a styrofoam in a 5D cutter as well, and definitely like a laser for the metal, all of these things. But it's always the question how to work with that, how to put these details together to get that look which you are looking for. So it's not just it's a 3D print, so it's easy. No, it's a 3D print is one part, but we have to combine maybe various 3D prints or with CNC with something else, with another step. And it's not like a kind of easy answer, that everything will be done in a CNC cutter, because it's not that easy, to make the board like that. So, and I should say that I'm proud that the guys really make that. They really improve themselves in the, there was a set in a season that was completely built from the rocks. And we built it in South Africa, and we actually had a 3D model of that, having every single rock as an object, because that was the easiest way how we can make it work. Because sculpting the rock is very hard, and you don't have enough sculpture to do that. So you have to kind of find a way how to use the carpenters to make the shape of the rock, and after that give it to the sculptures. Yeah, so it was a really that process. But in general, the 3D is usually the SketchUp, 2D is usually AutoCAD, and all the patterns and details is usually Photoshop, these kind of things.
That's the detail our readers want. That's the stuff. I'm glad to know you start on pencil as well. It's always good to know that even at the peak of the game where you are, it's that you have to start with the pencil, because that's great. I just want to be really cheeky and ask one question, not about Wheel of Time.
Yes,
you worked on Snowpiercer.
Yes, on the feature film, not on the
the film. Yeah, that's what I mean. I haven't seen the series. I love the film.
Yeah,
and the production design is something that I have always thought about.
Yeah,
because what I love about that film, funnily enough, it comes back to what you were saying, is there is a story being told, kind of more of an obvious story being told in Snowpiercer of the classes that goes through. And I was just wondering if you could just, because this is my one opportunity I get to talk to the builder of the train of Snowpiercer, because I really think that film is so effective because of that production design. And I was just wondering if, I know this was a while ago now, but that process of building those different kind of those, the different classes in the train, what was your process on that? And I'd be really interested, because I love that film, and I'd just be really interested.
I was quite surprised that the director Bonk actually chose me for that project, because I didn't have a kind of big CV in the in the sci-fi in that moment, and maybe he did it because I didn't have that one. So I wasn't I wasn't able to say we did it on the Star Wars like that, so let's do it the same way. So that was a fair thing. And the second thing that maybe he believed that I'm able to, think about outside the box, but still being in the box in the way of being a really realistic. And the whole because we had the visual challenge and we have a technical challenge. And technical challenge is that we know that we couldn't afford the new stages, so we have to come back to the some stages. So we have to kind of make the pattern and the structure first, and we have to really think about the story and what is in each car a little bit later. So because we had to build kind of cages, metal cages which were on a gimbal and which can let us to do the movement of the cars. We don't have it for every single car, but we had it for some cars. Altogether 16 cars were on a gimbal. And suddenly the visual special effects, they said we need 6 weeks just to build it, that structure. So we have to kind of assign for the shape and size. And after that, we can go really piece by piece. And that was really helpful because, first of all, John Hobong is a very nice person. He's one of the nicest directors I ever met in a creative process. And he's very well prepared. He spent a lot of time working on it. He had some kind of visions. And sometimes he gave me some kind of sketch, which wasn't the sketch about the design. It was sketch about what do you feel what will happen there, so that he said I would like to have a bridge, and in that bridge I would like to have a fight, and there's it was always that kind of discussion about the layout of the car. And he told me okay, in this car I just need the one corridor because I will just walk through, and I don't think that I will look left or right. I will just walk through that corridor, and I will where I am. And so that was really helpful. And after that, we had again, similar type. We had meetings. First thing which we decided, actually, there was no designer, designing the whole train, but each car has a story, and it was designed different periods. So that was the first thing. And the second that we said, okay, let's do a car by car meeting, and we'd always I did 3 cars only, because it was really 3 hours meetings, and talking about the details, talking about the story, how it's happened, how the people came in, how it's working. And all of that was a really nice process. And of course, it helped us a lot because Director Bong was really well prepared. And he came with books of the, various sketches and concepts and references. And so we discussed something, and he picked up the picture and said, this is really the right picture for that. And we had these kind of mood boards, and it did help us to do that. But in the same time, we had all these designs and the schematic, and because we have to be production friendly, and we have to find a way how to fit into the schedule with all of that stuff. So it was a kind of really that discussion. Yeah, some train cars were kind of really smooth. They were really straightforward. I said something, he said something, we kind of really moved fast. And some cars were really a long process to find the right way to create that feeling, that's what we're looking for. But it was really intense process, which took a half a year. Yeah. And but not the prep altogether, because I was asked to do it in October with the idea that we are shooting in early March, and I was how the hell we are able to do it? How it was too much. There was too many things together.
Yeah.
And thanks to the way that he was really focused and he was really in it, we were able to do it well. Because for me, there was really I was overwhelmed by the amount of information I got from him. That there was a pressure from construction team, they need the drawings, that they need to to do something. Because in general, I'm a kind of calm person, and I don't need that kind of the pressure. The creative pressure is so big on me, but it's not usually visible. It's not I'm not screaming or yelling to people or something like that. And I do like the collaborators. We are kind of similar, that they are actually focused, they are working hard, but they are not really showing up that they are stressful, because we are everybody's under stress. And that's what I like about the Director Bong, that he's really similar in that way that he's actually really like focused, and he's calling me like evening or sending an email because he had an idea, but he's not the one who's like really pushing and saying like I'm the famous director and you have to do everything what I said now. Like he's really like trying to make it work as best as possible, and that was really great experience. Like that was like really that moment that when I had a call about the TV series, and it's like this is like a really one-time experience, and I don't want to like
relive it.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to relive the trauma that you had gone through on the last one. It was so stressful then. It's like, oh yeah, let's go back and do that stress for way longer.
Yeah, no, but it was stressful, but also really creative and really like that was kind of like that's what I should say, like the creative stress, not the stress of like being like late only.
Yeah,
late, because you are always a little bit late, but. There was like a really, we are late, but we know why we are late because we are really trying to do our best. And, like that you are looking for some specific material, and that material is somewhere in Germany stuck in the truck and is not in the workshop yet, and all of that was kind of like a part of the story. But really the fact that, and there was really a great team from the beginning, costume designer, VFX team, special effects team, and stunts and all of that was working kind of smoothly all together on that show. And the production helped us to kind of follow the idea that we have to, the only way how we can fit into the budget is that we will recycle, that gimbal, for example, because it was a really expensive thing. And we couldn't just come and shoot next day. We need like 3 weeks to rebuild the cars which were standing on the gimbal. So we have to shoot first, go out, go back, shoot, rebuild it, come back. And all of that was really kind of a puzzle to put it together. But I think that we did it well. And really, this is one of the experience that I'm really enjoying the result. Even it's very, brutal and all of that. Yeah. It's a really great movie, I think. And it was pity at that time that that's the reason why I hate Harvey Weinstein, because he didn't help us.
He withheld the release. It was one of those films that for a lot of people, you just find it one day. You're like, why isn't this one of the biggest films? Yes. Like it's got everything and
it's happened because, as I said, Director Bong is very calm and very nice person. But they had a meeting with Weinstein, and he said, you have to cut 20 minutes. Or I will cut 20 minutes. And he said, no, nobody will cut 20 minutes. In that case, I will not support the movie because it's too slow. It's not for the audience. It's wrong for the audience. You have to cut 20 minutes. And Director Bong is I'm not cutting 20 minutes. That's my movie, and that's the deal, So instead of spending the time promoting the movie, and because what is hard about that movie, and what many of my American friends were really not clear, it's not a clear genre. It's not, because it's not like a dystopian. It's not like a classical. It's not the action. It's not the sci-fi. It's what is that? It's the closest one which I have is the Brazil for me, because it's a really kind of very strange word, but also there are some kind of funny moments. There are some
it's really darkly funny.
Yeah,
but also
and that joke, but also people are dying, and it's all of that is really all together there. So I feel it was really good that we had a chance to do it. And there was also one thing which was really, I didn't know that about the time, and I am happy that I didn't know that. Because that time there was the most expensive Korean movie ever, at that time when we shot it, 2011. And there was such a big pressure on, because there was a private money. It wasn't a state money or, kind of founding or something. There was really a private money into it. And I didn't know that they were really under big stress because they were hoping to do the pre-sale before we will start shooting. But they were not able to close the pre-sale, even with that big cast, Chris Evans and Octavia Spencer and all of this, and Ed Harris. They were not able to sign the good pre-sale, and that was really kind of very close to be completely cancelled, that project. That was really the process which producers and the director went through before, when we were working on it. And the second one, and I'm really happy for it, that actually when I was on one of these kind of festivals in Asia, in Macau, I was there there was like a half a year after the premiere. And I spoke with one of the producers and I asked him about what is the money side of that. And he told me that they have money back, which was exactly not from America, but they had it from Asia, Korea, China, Taiwan, Japanese, all these Hong Kong and all these kind of countries, Malaysia. That was so important for the director Bong because, in Korea, this is really it's a kind of small country, 40 million people. Surrounded by these big countries, plus the crazy cousins, from the north. And they are really really very hardworking, but it's really tough society, and that's what I understand, seeing the, the hierarchy there, or, the moment when some producer came to the room and everybody stand up, really these kind of moments of that. And so it was very important, and I am so happy that it went well because he did the movie as he wanted. He insists not edit it because some crazy producer had the idea to edit it because in his mind it has to be 20 minutes shorter.
Yeah.
And he followed that idea and he made it. Movie was enough successful, not only on the festivals, on awards, but also within the audience. So they gave him the other money to the Parasite, and we know the story of the Parasite. So I'm really, because this is as I said, and I'm not saying that because he's now the famous one, but he was one of the nicest person and the directors. And what is the most important for me, the way how he was focused from the beginning to the end, and how he was really not losing the time with some kind of show off of his personality, or his how good he is, but he was really we were immediately jumping into the subject and going there.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was very generous, and I really, really appreciate it because I honestly love that film, and that was my one chance to nerd out.
Thank you.
And that was my chat with Ondřej Nekvasil. Thank you again for coming on. It always sounds obvious when you think about it, but I'm really always blown away by these stories that are told beyond the obvious of what you see on screen. I mentioned the video game Dark Souls and environmental storytelling, which in games you get to explore more because you can actually move around at your own pace in the space. But what I love is that even in something like The Wheel of Time, you can just pay attention to the backgrounds and the world around it, and there is just this deeper level to the whole world and story right in front of you in plain sight. I always remember the story I read online about the show The Wire, and how if you keep an eye on the backgrounds on certain key locations throughout the series, you can see how they reflect the wider societal effects of the main stories, like windows and houses being broken and repaired, or being dilapidated, or being completely renovated. It's just another way to tell a wider story that I don't think we often notice consciously, but as I always ramble about, it is something that I really do think sticks in the back of your mind and makes those film and TV shows bigger than the sum of its parts. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please do like, comment, share, and rate on your podcast platform of choice, and it really does help, thank you. And so, until next time, look after yourselves.